before we get into the next four pieces, which all are from what has come out of THI and revealing the truth of what they're up to, there was an announcement of some sort, according to one alt media, or one particular alt media personality, that we're going to get announcement next year of the secret space program. The AF announced and said that there will be declassification of the secret space programs. Really? Fine. But they're not secret. If builder people know, and lots of people know, it's not a secret for a start. What does it change for your day-to-day life? Declassification of secret space programs. Nothing. Will it reveal that certain other alt media personalities have been working against humanity in the secret space program? Time will tell. And 4, anti-gravity technology being released is fine, except they've had that for over 60 years. What will it change? The cost to ride it will be prohibitive to all except the elites, like the SpaceX program or the Virgin Branson program. It's not going to give us any benefits whatsoever. And ET disclosure will not bring quality or equality of life to the vast majority of people, and is a complete distraction if that is the sole focus of attention. Now, we've had 2 stories out this week, neither of which makes any sense, unless it's part of a wider agenda which is being covered heavily on THI, and ignoring it because of political correct retards will not make it go away. Now, the first was in Italy, who have quite a racial issue towards black people. And at the soccer games, they do monkey chants at the black soccer players. And it's become quite a major issue. Now, one has to ask at this point whether these chanters are actually crisis actors, because that level of abuse went out largely back in the 1980s, although not necessarily the racism, which, contrary to Portal People clowns, is done by all colours against all colours, and that's a fact. So the Italian Soccer Federation stepped in and decided that they would make a stand, and did a presentation with 3 monkeys as the backdrop. Seriously. You can't make this stuff up. Well, I don't believe for 1 minute a whole panel of people would come up with that logo and none of them thought, oops, that's a bit insensitive. I know people are stupid, but they're not that stupid. And I personally believe it is deliberate to cause distraction, further alienate the white and black communities, and another talking point for the anti-white Portal People narrative. But it didn't end there. Because then we had the American treasonous Portal People declaring that putting your index finger to your thumb whilst keeping the other 3 fingers upright is now a symbol of white power. Dirty me. How about they focus on the symbology of a Freemasonic nature? Secret codes, handshakes, and let's all lift our right trouser leg up to the knee, like Pratt's. Or focus on other stuff. You know, that's bizarre stuff that resembles kindergarten levels. Or perhaps they could focus on the various symbols of child pedophilia. That would be far more worthy, would it not? But no, you can't do that, as their paymasters who pay them to read their scripts are all involved in it, is why. So with these people, it's no, let's target and denigrate the primary group of people who can expose their criminality and have sufficient intellect to bring them down. The white race. White power, my ass. This is the same white power and white privilege that has seen white demographic numbers fall from 30+% globally in 1920 to 12 when I disclosed it in the From Russia with Love series. But I saw a report recently now stating the updated figures, and it's not 12% anymore. It's 9%. So much for white power. But Thomas, all the elitists, they're all white. Yes, on the face of it, pun intended. But beneath it lies the sub-grey race. They are behind all of this. With their various sacrifices, wars, energy harvesting, name changing, land and resource claiming, and their portal people controlling the narrative. Remember, 90+% of media is controlled by 6 corporations, all of which are the head of the sub-grey race at the top of it. The National Zionists. N-A-Z-I. Pushed out to be German when they're not. They've spent at least 110,000 years trying to wipe out the white race, and people without a single brain cell of their own can spout racist or white supremacist all they like. But this is a serious issue that has been tragically overlooked due to people's propensity to not think for themselves or research for themselves, and instead form and react to clickbait headlines provided to them by the very peoples wishing to wipe them out. That's what all this climate change is about. And they're using children to do so. And if that wasn't enough to convince you that they have a problem and are spinning everything, perhaps these next 2 articles will add to your database that the portal people launched this week, all in the patterns to be able to see the program. It's all in the patterns, and they always repeat until people wake up to reality, and then they go into reverse spin mode. In From Russia with Love 4, we covered an example of how the indigenous black communities had prospered very well. And in one particular area in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we referenced it as the untold American Holocaust, at a time period when atrocities and death machines, man-made viruses, deliberate, and programs were being launched globally between 1914 and 1923. Now, what our piece did, it dispelled the myth that all blacks were slaves and that they had their own prosperous bank called the Freedmen Savings Bank. They had a large and widespread successful business platform that wouldn't allow interference via contracts or negotiations with the then current business and money systems. They were autonomous and they were successful, which, as you all know, is not allowed by the elitist clowns. What I didn't know was that that particular area at the time was nicknamed the Negro Wall Street, or the Black Wall Street, and so was obviously at a power unto themselves, and the authorities didn't like this, and they sent in the US military to bomb the town, the people, and the businesses into oblivion. 1921. The region never recovered, and those that were left were forced back into servitude. Now, the Portal people ran the story this week. Quote, Tulsa may be closer to finally answering whether bodies of black people killed in the 1921 race massacre were dumped into mass graves after one of the worst episodes of racial violence in US history. And then they went on to report this. For decades, the rampage was left out of the textbooks in Oklahoma, and few people spoke about what had happened. The massacre began on May 31st, 1921, when a, quote, white mob marched on Greenwood, one of the richest black communities in the country. The mob gathered after a black teenager who was working as a, quote, shoe shiner, unquote, in downtown Tulsa, was arrested and accused of assaulting a white woman on a public elevator in broad daylight. This is according to the Tulsa Race Riot Commission report that was released in 2001, which, as you'll all know, is full of BS. All their commission reports are BS. We found that out after 9/11. There was a scuffle between angry white vigilantes gathered at the courthouse intent on, quote again, lynching the Shine Boy, unquote, and armed black men intent on protecting him, according to the commission report. A shot rang out and the violence began. Historians believe that as many as 300 black people were killed. Much of Greenwood was burned to the ground. The mob, some of them, quote, government agents, unquote, destroyed 35 square blocks of Greenwood, and the destruction included more than 1,250 homes, churches, schools, businesses, a hospital, and a library. That's what the Portal people spat out this week. What utter lies. The key was in the quote, unquote, some government agents. It's the classic tactic of telling you some of the truth and the rest of it total bullshit. The reference to shoe shine boy, also derogatory. Why would a thriving black community need a shoe shine boy to begin with? They wouldn't. The mentioning of lynching as a form of a white practice, again, it's seeding. When the practice of lynching was an African invention long before the European greed merchants turned up in their country. And it still goes on to this day in Africa, of blacks lynching blacks. It is a heinous practice, whoever is doing it. But they're running a narrative, you see. And the psyche of the black people in mentioning lynching, burning of churches, and degenerating them by calling them shoe shine boys has gone on a long, long time. But the people badly need to learn the real truth, as their spoon-fed portal people diet is costing many people their lives. The US military bombed Tulsa because the black community was autonomous and was doing very, very well for themselves. Nothing to do with white mobs, as they put it. And this is, quite frankly, outrageous reporting, but it's also a victory for THI and the From Russia with Love series, and also Dane Calloway, who has reported this in far greater depth than I, that the media is now covering our stories in greater volume now and having to waste vast quantities of their time trying to write a spin story to cover up the truth that's coming out. Portal people can continue rewriting his story. We will report the truth and let them face the music when reality bites. And it's biting. And you would think that that would be enough for 1 week of divide and conquer. But no. Try this one next. It's all the same theme. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has been slammed for wrongly blaming white supremacy for the deadly Jersey shooting at the kosher supermarket. The Democratic Congresswoman had tweeted a photo of one of the 3 victims gunned down inside the JC kosher supermarket a week last Tuesday in an attack that authorities have said was fueled by anti-Semitism. Ms. Tlaib stated, "This is heartbreaking. White supremacy kills." She tweeted from her own personal Twitter account last Thursday, of which then she deleted the tweet soon after. And that's just wrong again. But then she went from one wrong tweet into another, as Tlaib also tweeted about the shooting on her official Twitter account without this time referencing white supremacy. Quote, "It was beyond heartbreaking to learn of what appears to be another anti-Semitic act of violence. The hate grown in our country is toxic." Yes, it is. And it's people like her generating the toxic environment and stupid people for following her. This type of stereotype racism is a program that this show has been warning you about for a long time now. And the idea that racism is only done by whites is both wrong and also damaging. Statistics show there is more racism done and violence between people of colour. And yet the latest thing is to just blame one group. There are elements in all colours, cultures and creeds that are racist. That is a fact. Blaming one group, no matter who that group may be, is neglecting the rest of the issue. This has gone on for hundreds of thousands of years. When someone meets someone that's different, the first mode is to attack. When people turned up in the jungles in Africa, they got attacked. When the Pilgrims et al. Turned up in America, they got attacked. Is it Jonestown? The Jonestown group? Because we've all got this inner fear. That's the problem. But the fear is irrational. Because the minute there's a disaster anywhere, be it flood, or hurricane, people of all colours come together. Suddenly that doesn't matter. Why does it take a disaster for people to come together? It shouldn't be that way. We all want the same things, pretty much. As for Miss Tlaib, she should have been fired by now for those comments. It is blatant mainstream media stereotype and rhetoric, and it's clearly racist towards white people. She didn't even check the facts. She just ran her mouth off on assumptions again, and dangerous assumptions at that. Will she be fired? No chance. Part of the programme, you see, for the simple fact it wasn't racist against black, Hispanic or Jews is why. And it appears it is okay to denigrate the white race with no comeback whatsoever. Yet if Mr. Trump had tweeted about that incident and said, quote, black people being violent again, unquote, the media and all the fake I am offended actor and actresses would come out of the woodwork in uproar. Despite the fact, had he said that, it would actually be correct in this story. But being correct or telling the truth in this world becomes a revolutionary act. And what is lost in the stream of political religiosity-based pity party is that people died. Not one report focuses on the people that died, only the fact that they were Jews. People died, not a religious program. And what is lost is the people who did the shooting were the same colour as Ms. Tlaib. Oops. And more conveniently lost and buried in an avalanche of repeating sentences of anti-Semitism is that the killers were Jewish. Oops again. But none of that matters when the AIPAC and J Street, backed by the treasonous media, as Let's All Pity Party the Jews programme again, and it's rolled out to suit an agenda. They're not interested in Jewish people. Not for 1 second are they interested in their own people. They proved that in the Second World War. Rothschilds and the Begin left them in the camps. 6 people died that day in an unnecessary religious-based violence. And at which point will the treasonous media focus on how many people are killed because of fake religions? Now that would be a real story to cover.